Why am I reviewing episodes 1 through 4 of The Defenders so far in advance of its debut? Well, here's how it went down. Netflix made the first 4 episodes, which is half of the season, available to press in advance. And I was like, I'm just going to watch the first episode and review that. But after the first episode, I have to tell you, I didn't feel that I had a good enough feel for the show to review it. I mean, honestly, I didn't even know what the show was about after watching the first episode. So I was like, I gotta watch more because I have nothing to talk about. And I'm happy to report that after I watched all 4 episodes that were provided for me, but by the time I got to episode 3, I was totally sucked in to the show. And not only did the mysteries of The Defenders season 1 reveal themselves, but I have to know how they end. Yes, halfway through the 8-episode arc, I can say that I would definitely have binge-watched the whole thing if I could. Something that's been hard to do for the last 2 seasons of Marvel Netflix. Now, this is a spoiler-free review. Don't worry about it. And I'm doing that partially because, again, we're so far out from the debut of the show, but also because I'm under embargo. They're like, don't ruin our secrets. This whole season is about secrets. If you ruin the secrets, there's nothing left. And I think that's good. I'm glad that there's, it's interesting. Usually it's a character study, I think, the first couple of, shows we've watched with Marvel Netflix so far. So this is a departure to have it genuinely be like this mystery that unravels before you and you're like, I have to know how it ends. I've never experienced that before with a Marvel Netflix show, and I have to say I'm enjoying it. So if I can't talk about what happens in the show, what are we going to discuss? Well, I want to talk about the characters themselves, what it's like seeing them come together, and then also the production design. Let's start with that because it's the only resounding negative with The Defenders season 1. And that's because it comes off as cheap and lazy as I mean, it's just really, it's inexcusable, to be perfectly honest with you. Because the costumes and sets not only have like a student film, this is the best I could get feel to them, but there's no variation. I don't feel there was enough thought put into it. And where that really actually comes to a head is when the characters all come together. And they're sitting down in that Chinese restaurant, which we'll talk about in a moment, and they're all dressed the same. They should feel like these are worlds colliding. I know they all come from different parts of New York, but New York, one of the things I like about New York City as a New Yorker is that every neighborhood is so different, and it's a difference you can feel and see, but not in this show. What the kind of suit that Danny Rand wears should look very different from the kind of suit that Matt Murdock would wear, but yet it seems like they share the same closet. So it seems like the Defenders all come from the same world already, they just don't know it, when instead you should really have a strong feeling that it's weird for these people to be together. And that's what I liked about them coming together from an acting and story perspective. I thought the show did acknowledge that, which was a refreshing change of pace from the usual gung-ho, of course I want to form a team approach that's usually taken in this kind of material. Here, thanks to the actors, and I'd say to some degree the writing is solid, but not spectacular. Again, I like the mystery that's being crafted, and it sucked me in after even just 3 episodes, and it continued through the 4th. But I thought that some of the dialogue left a little to be desired. We'll talk about that with the specific characters, and I just don't think anyone can write poor Danny Rand. But anyway, they did a good job showing the realistic reluctance I think that these characters would have coming together. The clash of personalities was there and very well done. And I like them bringing up all the reasons they shouldn't work together. I thought that was really great. I can't talk about anything else because I can't give away spoilers, but I thought the way it went down was compelling and realistic. Now, as for the characters, the standouts are Daredevil, surprise, surprise, but also Luke Cage. Now, let's start out with Charlie Cox. And maybe it's because we've spent the most time with him. Maybe it's because Charlie Cox is just so good in this role. But either way, he is by far and away the best person in the group, like by leagues. Like you're like, wow, he's just totally playing a different game than the rest of you. And I think it's a complex, nuanced performance, which does that. But I think that Charlie Cox is responsible for a lot of that. I mean, the writing to some degree, but I think a lot of it is what Charlie Cox brings to the role. But I also really I'm enjoying, because I'm only halfway through, Mike Colter's Luke Cage. He's excellent, as good as he was in Jessica Jones, and much better than he was in his own series, where I feel he really wore his cause on his sleeve. But he hasn't abandoned it here. He's very community-minded, but in a way that's softer and more organic, and I think far more effective. In fact, the only time that I've ever actually cried during any Marvel Netflix show, I didn't legit cry, but I welled up, was during a Luke Cage scene. You'll know it when you see it in the first 4 episodes. I was like, you got me! It was very, very good. Their supporting casts, Daredevil and Luke Cage, are also the best, particularly Foggy. Nice new haircut. I could actually stand to use a little bit more Foggy. And Misty Knight, who's as spunky as ever, and of course rocking her signature hairstyle, which she now dons. Thankfully, when it comes to Jessica Jones, she got better by episodes 3 and 4. And the writers, I think, finally started to get their groove. She also starts to become really integral to solving the mystery, and I think that helps her character a lot too. When it comes to just Jessica Jones, this creative team on the Defenders is not as good as her own. I mean, she starts out the series as a cliche, bad attitude drunk, which is really unfortunate. But she has some really clever lines, again, in episodes 3 and 4, and her character starts to, I think because her character starts to have a purpose in the story, she's kind of just like lost and meandering for the first 2 episodes, she gets more focused and better. Also, luckily, Kristen Ritter just has a really striking look, so she pops whenever she's on camera, even if the words coming out of her mouth are cringeworthy. And then there's Finn Jones as Danny Rand, who just continues to be a huge drain on Marvel Netflix. Everything about his character is unrealistic, from his depiction to what the Iron Fist is, to the Rand Corporation. It's just, I think maybe this is where they need to spend the most money, because of course, you know, he's the head of such a major conglomerate, and maybe they don't have it, but they should be able to cheat it better. His character does start to loosen up in episode 4 around Luke Cage. They're of course supposed to be partners eventually, and he does become more tolerable. And I have to add, to be fair, at some moments he so strikingly looks like Iron Fist from the comics that you're distracted. You're like, oh, I can see why they cast him. He looks an awful lot like Danny Rand. But he doesn't, that's it. He just looks like him in like a still frame. He just cannot bring anything to the role. And I'm sad to say that whenever he or his supporting cast is on camera, the show grinds to a halt. It's unfortunate. Now, as for Sigourney Weaver, by episode 4, her villainous Alexandra is pretty darn interesting. I can't talk about it because she's just an enigma wrapped in a riddle, right? However the saying goes. But what's distracting about her character that I can discuss, and it goes back to the costume and production design, is that they really did not do a good job showcasing her. It's actually the worst I've ever seen Sigourney Weaver look, and it's very distracting. Again, also because she's supposed to be this really powerful, high-end businesswoman, and I don't think that's reflected in any of her costume choices or the settings that they put her in. You're like, I don't know, you seem pretty mid-level to me, Alexandra, but who knows? It's unfortunate. But she, of course, Sigourney Weaver's a pro, so she's doing a great job with her acting. There's other stuff at play, but I can't talk about it. And I would like to add, though, that it did feel like a Marvel Knights comic when I was watching it. That was cool. I was like, you know what? This does feel like that subgroup of Marvel Comics. It was very much its own thing, and this feels like it. The only thing, though, is that Marvel Knights comics were known for being visually ambitious, and that is something that this series, I think, for some time hasn't shared, and is very evident, perhaps the most evident now with the Defenders. And also for a season that centers so heavily on mysticism and mystery, it is weird that the acting and writing have to do all the heavy lifting and that the visuals actually keep the show grounded. I mean, you would think they could have a lot of fun with the visuals considering what they're working with, which you'll see. But again, and I think this is the most important thing, I really need to know how the story ends. I gotta find out the answers, and I think that's a win in my book, at least halfway through the first season. And I do like seeing all the characters. It makes me very excited, by the way, for a new season of Daredevil, a new season of Jessica Jones. I would be into another season of Luke Cage, but I think they need to make some major differences behind the camera creatively, or at least redirect themselves. And then as for Iron Fist, I'd fold him into Luke Cage a couple of episodes. I wouldn't burden Luke Cage with Danny Rand all the time, but I don't see any reason to continue with the standalone Iron Fist series. I just see no demand for it, and I see no place for it to go. Maybe I'll change my mind by the end of the 8 episodes when they debut on August 18th on Netflix, and we will discuss it spoilery, and hopefully we'll all like the answers that we get to this really good mystery. So that's my non-spoiler review of the first half of The Defenders Season 1. I'm excited to hear your thoughts about it down below, and I'll be picking one comment from a Beyond the Trailer subscriber. You have to be a subscriber to be eligible to win Beyond the Trailer's Movie a Day giveaway, where you get a $30 AMC gift card. This is going on every weekday through August 23rd, so good luck. Comment down below, and thank you to Broadband TV for sponsoring this. All right, and you can check out some more videos, of course, right now.